Welcome to Financial Planning Explained. I'm your host, Mike Menninger, founder and owner of Menninger & Associates Financial Planning. And I am privileged, pleased, delighted, every other adjective in the book, to have with me today Mike Guman. Mike Guman, former professional football player, as well as a star at Penn State and a local from the Bethlehem, Allentown area, a renowned individual. Mike, thank you very much for joining me again. Always a pleasure.
Mike, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You've been on my show once, 2 or 3 years ago. You came as a special guest for one of my dinner events, and it's time to do it again. And I know we could talk football for hours on end, especially you, okay? But we're going to talk a little bit different, and this is going to take us multiple episodes, and I'm delighted to do it. Some of the other sides of the sport outside the lines. Certainly we'll talk about inside the lines because that's a lot of fun. But there's a lot of things that have changed since you've played football in the late 70s, haven't they?
Oh, most definitely, Mike. I mean, it's a completely different ballgame now, especially in the even all the way down to high school level. High school to college, it's just a completely different scenario from when I was coming out in the the 70s.
So talk to me about it. So you graduated Bethlehem Catholic, correct?
Yes, I did.
Which was it John Spag?
Oh, John Spagnola.
John Spagnola. Who's a former Eagles, right?
Former Eagle.
Right.
Yeah, Yale graduate. John was a year older than me.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it goes all the way back with John and I to CYO football at Notre Elementary School in Bethlehem.
Wow. Okay.
We played there, and CYO football was very big, back then. And there was a good league. There were a lot of Catholic schools. Yeah, we had a pretty good team. We won, I think, 31 games in a row.
Well, you put two guys like that together.
When we were in grade school, and John was a year older than me. So
right. What position did he play?
In high school, well, he was a tight end.
Okay.
John was a tight end. So as a tight end, and then back then, whether at grade school or high school, you played both ways.
Right.
You didn't have enough kids.
And you were a safety too, right?
I was a safety on defense. And John was a linebacker.
Okay.
Linebacker and tight end.
Right. Well, you take two professional football players and you throw them on a CYO team. The odds are pretty good that you guys are going to have put together a good team.
Yeah, we were pretty good. We had a lot of other good kids who were good athletes and everything too. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, your town bred you, John Spagnola, Matt Millen.
Yeah, Matt was in a little town, Whitehall, Pennsylvania.
Right.
Is where he went to high school at, but. We never crossed paths really until later in our careers in high school when we were getting recruited. We didn't play them. It was sort of, you have Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton in the Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, right.
And back when we were in high school in the mid to late 70s, it was mostly the Allentown and Bethlehem schools that played each other. We really didn't play. They were considered the suburban schools,
right.
Whitehall and Parkland and Northampton and schools like that, and they really weren't on our schedule. We read about these guys all the time, but I never really played against Matt.
Did CYO not play public schools then, or what?
No, they did not.
Right.
The league was big enough. There were enough elementary schools in CYO program where you could have a league and have a very competitive league and play.
So did that area foster more athletes? I feel like there's someone recent from up in that area.
Yeah, well, he just might be breaking the...
It is Saquon Barkley. Did he go to your high... No, not your high school.
He went to Matt's high school. He went to Whitehall High School.
All right. So I thought, for some reason, Saquon Barkley was in my head. Yeah, that's a name that we might have heard of.
He moved to the Lehigh Valley, I believe, Saquon and his family. I don't think he grew up and was born in the Lehigh Valley. I think his family moved there when he was, coming into high school or later in his childhood.
But he went to Whitehall.
But he did go to Whitehall High School.
That's cool.
So, yeah, that is pretty neat.
Yeah, so you guys are generating all kinds of football players.
And then he went on to Penn State as well, obviously. Everybody knows that. But he wasn't targeted to go there. I mean, James Franklin, he had committed to Rutgers. And he was going to go to Rutgers. Yeah, he was not like extremely highly recruited out of high school. He wasn't like on everybody's high school All-American team. He was just sort of under the radar a little bit. But Franklin and his coaches, saw him and saw film of him, and they said, we got to get this guy. And, they did recruit him then and convinced him to change, and rather than go to Rutgers, to go to Penn State.
Isn't that bad form, though, in college to do that? I thought I heard.
Even back then, I think, he had committed. We hadn't signed a letter of intent.
Oh, okay.
To go to school
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
So it was before that. He had verbally committed.
Yeah, okay.
To Rutgers.
Have you met Saquon?
Once or twice, just very briefly. Just very briefly. But he's got from what I see, he's got a great reputation as just a wonderful guy.
That's what I've heard. I just didn't
Yeah.
know whether it was the Penn State alumni type things where you guys get
Yeah.
together, if you've seen him or anything else.
I haven't really had a chance to spend time speaking with him or things like that, but I know my buddy Matt has. I think he's talked with him a number of times.
Yeah. Oh, Matt Millen, you mean?
Yes.
Or, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's neat.
Mhm.
Do you still keep in contact with Spagnola and Matt Millen?
Yeah, actually, yes. They just had Spagnola I saw recently because this past year was the 50th anniversary of our high school team, our 1974 high school team
Oh.
that went undefeated
Okay.
at Bethlehem Catholic, and we had a big reunion for
Nice.
that at one of the high school games.
Nice.
And actually, I just was
50 years.
50. I can't believe that. Where did that go? Yeah. Back then, though, they didn't have the classifications that they do now. There
do you mean?
were 6 classifications.
Oh, you mean like
State of Penn-
quad 4A?
6A, 5A,
Right,
4A,
okay.
3A. Everybody was lumped together. They didn't have. It was all whether you had 800 students or whether you had 4,000 students. We were all in the same.
Oh, really?
Categorized together.
In Pennsylvania,
Yes.
so that-
And the newspaper in Harrisburg, the Harrisburg Patriot News, they would select, who they thought were the best teams in the state, and that's how you got ranked in high school back in the 70s.
Yeah, I know. That's the same way.
It's different. It's different now, obviously.
So, not all that much. It was that way in New York at the time. Mind you, when I say at the time, I'm about 6 years behind you. In New York, they had separated by, I think, A, B, C, D schools. Same
Yeah, right,
concept.
right.
Okay, but it wasn't fair for an A school to play a D school. And I don't think an A school would want to play a D school.
Right.
Because you would just be running all over them.
Right.
So,
Right.
talk to me about the recruiting process. Was it you were being recruited or you were looking out or both, and when did that all start?
To remember, what the rules were back then. They couldn't contact you until I think your junior year, and you would start getting letters from the colleges. Whether it be if you were in that top level of athlete that they were looking at, you'd get your letter from Michigan and Ohio State, and you name the school, Maryland, whoever it was, and then coaches they were permitted to visit at certain times of the year, like in the spring of your junior year or something. They could have like one visit with you.
Really?
Yeah, and things like that. And I don't remember exactly what the terms were, but it was something like that. And then the same thing, they could only have certain types of contact. In front, person-to-person contact was limited, and phone calls, then they could call you, and your phone would be ringing off the hook at night.
Once that day.
Going in, once they were able to do that, you could get three or four calls a night
Yeah,
from
wow.
coaches.
Yeah.
Just to talk.
Back in the day, there was your rotary phone, wasn't it?
That's exactly
Your
right.
home phone.
That's exactly right. That's what it was. No cell phones, none of that.
Yeah.
They'd be calling and doing that, and that's how that process started. And then they could come visit you at your high school like once or twice or something like that, and then you can have an official visit.
Were they permitted to go to your game? If it was that considered an official visit? If they go to your game to observe?
I don't remember exactly, but I think they were allowed to watch you, or they could get film on you, and I know they could get film on you.
Right.
But to go physically watch you, I think that was limited as well. I don't know how many times they were able to do that.
So what's changed?
What's changed now with the it's so different, I guess, now too, from a lot of different ways. Not only how they communicate with you. Now it's social media, it's all those types of things, that they reach out to players and such. But now the dynamic has changed with all the way down to the high school level, even with the NIL money.
Yes, and that's starting
what's
to get
happening with that.
Yeah, I'd seen. We talked about this beforehand. I saw that the Michigan Alumni Association or the Booster Club or whatever wants to give $10 million to a high school quarterback to try to recruit him.
It's unbelievable, the money.
That's.
And I have mixed emotions, about that. I mean, I don't begrudge the athletes anything. I mean, I think if, the way the system is now and the Big Ten with their expansion that they've done and everything, and they sign a media contract for $8 or $9 billion, and a scholarship which was big in the day back when I was coming out, which was your reward
Right.
for being good at athletics or at that sport, now seems almost inconsequential or trivial, in the whole scheme of the things in the process.
Oh, it's unbelievable. So let's go back to your days with recruiting. And I think you had once, in a previous conversation I had, that's how you met Matt Millen.
I did. That's how we met. We were going on our first recruiting trip together out to Michigan. And I had maybe met him once or twice with that, but we were both coming from the same area. We were being heavily recruited by Michigan. Bo Schembechler was there at the time. The same coach was recruiting us, from the staff at Michigan. And we flew out of Allentown Airport, ABE Airport. Well, it wasn't called ABE then. It was just Allentown Airport. And we went out there together, to Michigan. And we roomed together out there in a hotel. They put us in a hotel.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Off campus, yeah. No, they wined and dined us out there and sat in Schembechler's office on that Sunday before we came home, and he offered us both scholarships, to go there. And Matt, if you know him at all, he was there. Oh, Bo, I'm coming to Michigan. Had his arm around him, was telling him that. We're walking, we're going. I said, really? I said, you're sure? This is where you want to go? Oh, yeah, I'm coming here. Next week, we're down at Maryland. And we're on the same recruiting trip, and Jerry Claiborne's the coach down there, and same thing. We're in there at his office on Sunday and getting ready to exit. He offers us scholarships, to go to Maryland, and same thing. Matt's got his arm around him. I'm coming here, Jerry. I'm coming here. I think the only coach he didn't say that he was going to their school was Paterno, was at Penn State. So, yeah. So I mean,
was Paterno after that or before that?
Oh, when we visited? You mean? I don't remember exactly. I think he was. I forget when we went there. We went there, I believe, in January to our Penn State visit, and we were on that trip together as well.
Yes.
We were on that one.
And did
usually those colleges, they would try to have, one big weekend, where the main guys they were going after, they try to get them all in there almost together.
Right.
If they could.
Right.
So they did that.
So you met a lot of other players at the time.
You're reading about these kids in the paper,
who they are.
The success they're having, and you're like, well, this is that running back out in Pittsburgh, or this is the linebacker from, wherever, New Jersey, or, you heard about them, and now you got a chance to meet them, and everybody.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty. It was very neat.
Except they're your competitors as well.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So everything you were talking about is you're being recruited by Big Ten teams, and geographically speaking, Maryland and Ohio and Pennsylvania is all within a small area. Has that changed a lot too? Where, if it were today, and you were in high school, would you be receiving, well, not for Nick Saban, but...
Geographically, it depends. I think you typically get contacted by more of the schools that are in your geographic region. Mm-hmm. It just seemed like that's how it worked out. Rather than try to get the kid from California, they'll, the Pennsylvania or Jersey schools or Maryland schools, look at that 3 or 4 state area, and try to get the best players from there typically it's, how far away from home do you want to go?
Right.
When you're 17, 18-year-old high school kid.
Yeah, but Nick Saban and all these guys are he's grabbing
Yeah.
people from all over the country.
Sure, some schools do that. They have more of a national prominence. Notre Dame,
Oh, of course.
They're an example of that as well. But I think Penn State, for example, I think they concentrate, the bulk of their kids are probably going to come from that 3 or 4 state region.
Okay. Well, mostly, I think it's kind of nice if they're all from Pennsylvania because it's Penn State.
Yeah, right. But Ohio, I think Aller's from Ohio, the quarterback they have now. You look at some of those kids, Nick Singleton, one of their running backs is from Berks County. He's from Reading area.
Okay.
So I mean, they're trying to keep the best players in that 3 or 4 state area if they can. They'll go after them predominantly. But they'll get a guy from Texas, or they'll get a guy from Michigan, or even as far as the West Coast. Probably get a couple of kids from that.
So when did you decide on Penn State?
I decided on them I think I had an inkling. I didn't want to go that far away from home. My whole family was more Notre Dame oriented, with it. And I visited out there and had a great trip out to Notre Dame, and it's a wonderful place. But for me, it was too far away.
Okay.
It was too far away. So Penn State, Paterno was back then, and he was in his 50s, Joe, probably early 50s. And he was a special guy.
That's what I hear.
He was a very, very special guy from a lot of different ways, just personality-wise, and, the way when we went to visit up there, we stayed in the dorm room. We slept on a cot. They didn't put us up in some fancy hotel, and tried to wine and dine us. We stayed, we ate at the dining hall, and I said, this is what it's going to be. I'm not going to try to show you something that you're not going to experience when you come here.
I think that's smarter that way. But
And it was, but it was different approach from some of the other places that you went to.
Did you go there? When I say go there, did you accept at the same time as Millen? Was there any influence on each other to accepting it with Penn State?
No, I mean, Matt did Matt actually didn't want to go there. I was pretty confident that was the best place for me.
Right.
But Matt, he had committed to Colorado, of all places. They were.
Wait, didn't you say you committed to Maryland?
No. Well, he committed to a lot of places, but he didn't sign anything.
Right.
He didn't sign anything.
Did he sign with Colorado?
He was going to, but he was not 18 at the time. He was 17, and you needed a
guardian, a parent,
a parent to sign with you, and his dad would not sign the letter of intent.
Really?
To Colorado. Yeah.
I'm surprised his father didn't accept that, but I think it's good.
No,
it's good for his father.
No, it was, and he said, no, I don't want you going out there. He said, I want you going to, to Penn State.
Well, good. So I'll tell you what, we're going to take a short break here, and what we'll do is we'll pick up. Now you just moved from high school, and now you're out at Penn State. So we're going to pick up from there.
Sounds great.
We'll be back with you in just a few moments.
Do you keep up regularly with your investments? Where exactly are your hard-earned dollars going? Are you financially prepared for an emergency?
I'm Mike Menninger, founder of Menninger & Associates Financial Planning. We believe that education and knowledge are powerful, and we want our clients to understand why we are making the recommendations that we make. It's your money, and you deserve to know where it's going, because it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. So call us today to discuss your financial concerns. Welcome back to Financial Planning Explained, and I'm continuing here with Mike Guman. Mike, now you just came to Penn State. The kids are bigger than high school. They're probably faster than they were in high school. And when you're 18 and you're standing next to a 21-year-old, there's a huge age difference.
Yes, there is.
How is the transition?
It's always, I think, just the experience of being away from home.
That's a different transition.
For the first time too. And we come up and we start summer practice, and it's not like now as well anyway, where the kids are up there so much before even regular practice starts. You know, we came up, we got dropped off at our dorm, and took everything, went in there, and you started practice the next day. And they did something a little different our freshman year. And I think, you know, Joe Paterno afterwards regretted it extremely. We went 3 practices a day in summer camp, and they beat the bejesus out of us, you know, for that. And
Just the freshmen or
no,
everybody?
no, everybody.
Everybody, okay.
Everybody, yeah. And he just wore us all out, you know. So we got off to when the season started, we got off to an uncharacteristically slow start. I think we were 1-3.
Was that was that every year or just the first year that you got there that they beat everybody to death?
Yeah, I mean, training preseason camp was always hard.
Right.
It was always challenging, whether in college or in the pros. You
Right.
know, it's a long process, and the rules are different now compared to what they were back then.
Right.
You know, now you can't wear pads all the time. You can't. They had a heat adjustment period. You know, you'd be out there at you know, in 95, 100-degree weather, and they don't care.
Right.
You know? And no water breaks or whatever. No, they did do that, but you know, it wasn't. You know, like
It was
now they're
based
very
on-
conscious about all those things and the physical nature of what the sport does to you. You know, they're very concerned about that now these days. And back then, you know, it wasn't at the stage that it is at right now.
Well, it's a measure of toughness.
It really was. You know, yeah. What do you need a water break for? You know,
That's right.
Come on, get out there, suck it up.
That's right.
You know, type of thing. And they didn't realize, you know, the physical harm it could have done you. You know,
Well,
but
were you treated differently? As a general rule, not just you, but you as well. Freshmen treated differently, almost like in an initiation year. They talk about that they're rookie, and do they treat freshmen differently?
back then, yeah. I mean, there was you always had to earn your keep.
Right.
You know, and you go through a little bit of the hazing type of stuff that they would do. You know, they had a freshman night. You had to put on a skit. You had to, if you had training table, you know, for that evening, they might have you stand up and sing or something like that. You know, they'd put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Whether in the NFL or whether in, I don't know if they still do it in the NFL or whatever, but or in college, but you did have to do that type of stuff.
Well, it's all
We did
in
have
good
to go
fun.
through that. It was in good fun. You know, you're nervous and scared to death. You know, when you're an 18-year-old kid and you know you see these kids, the other guys on your team who were playing and on TV. You know, and now you know they're your teammates. You
Right.
know, who
Yeah,
have
that's
been-
pretty neat.
Yeah.
Were you a Penn State fan growing up?
I watched them a little bit. I wouldn't say I was a fan. I was probably more of a Notre Dame fan than I was a Penn State fan.
Right. Only going to Catholic school.
Yeah, right. But I did watch a lot. I was a sports junkie, you know. I watched college sports on TV, so when they were on, I would watch them, of course.
Right.
And there were some guys from our area who had been up there.
My goodness, I forgot I was going to ask you about your first year. So what I hear from other sports, and football I'm sure is the same way, that if you're a D1 athlete, you suddenly basically they own you now.
Yeah, very
Okay.
much so.
I guess
yeah.
that rumor's
It's
true.
you know, well, yeah, you wake up, you go to your classes, you go to the football building, you know, afterwards in season, you know, when you're there, you go to training table, then from training table, you go to study hall. You know, we had a mandatory study hall for freshmen at Penn State from
All freshmen or the football players?
the football players.
Right.
The football players. 7 to 9:30 or whatever it was. I think 7 to 9 or 7 to 9:30. You had to go check in at Petit Library. You had to be there, and you had to stay there till 9 o'clock or 9:30. And you're supposed to be doing your work.
Supposed to be. I like that, yeah.
Supposed to be doing your
it's
work.
It's a good time to goof off with all your friends.
Yeah.
Because you're all in the same
that.
place.
You could do that, but I mean that was the nature. Then you go home and you're tired and you go to bed. And you do the same thing the next day.
Was Joe Pa and the culture at Penn State big on the education as well?
Oh, no question. Absolutely.
More so than you
Absolutely.
see
I
in
mean,
other
he-
schools?
I don't know. I can't make that judgment or that comment. I don't know.
Because you weren't out of the
I
schools.
think there are some wonderful coaches in college football today. There were wonderful coaches back then. I can't imagine that whether it was a Bo Schembechler or a Bear Bryant or a Woody Hayes, that they're trying to win football games, but they're also trying to develop young men.
Well, and
to
that's
be
good.
people, and I think that there were a lot of really solid coaches. Paterno was certainly one of them.
Yeah.
There are some others who would bend the rules a little bit more. I think, that's sort of the nature of the beast. There are people who will do that. But yes, to answer your question, yes, we did. There was an emphasis on academics.
You referenced the coaches, and that was very interesting, and it made me think that they're not there just to coach the football team. They're there to also make sure that you're getting an education. They're there to motivate you, and they're also there, hopefully, to take an 18-year-old boy and turn him into a 21-year-old man. Joe Pa good at that?
Reinforce those values. I'm the person I am today, because of my experience with Joe Paterno. Just some of the little things, that he would do. Like he didn't tolerate, even today, wearing a hat in a building, or letting a lady enter the room first before yourself, or sit at a table before yourself. I never, and I maybe someone else can say this, but I never ever heard Joe Paterno or any of his coaching staff in my 4 years there ever utter a curse word out on the football field.
Really?
Ever. Ever. And if he heard somebody in the locker room, using foul language or things like that, there was a little jar in the training table room where you had to put money in it if he heard you doing that, and then they would give that money to a charity at the end of the year. So there were a lot of things that he tried to, it was his style of, obedience, character building, things like that he emphasized. That a lot of the guys who played for him will say today, I know it did for me, being late for a meeting. You had a 4 o'clock meeting, a team meeting at 4 o'clock, that door shut at 3:55. And if you weren't in your seat at 3:55, you paid the consequences afterwards. So even through the remainder of my life then, I was never late for church.
Oh, yeah.
Never late when I was working, for a meeting. I would always try to be there, 5 minutes early or 10 minutes early, from the appointment, when it was scheduled. And that was because of him.
I had similar training.
That's because of him.
So we're done with this episode. We're just going to pick it up with the next episode. So we'll be
Wonderful.
back. We'll pick it right up. So thank you for tuning in. As I pointed out, I'm here with Mike Guman today. I'm privileged to be here with Mike Guman, and we're going to be going through his career. So you're going to see more videos or podcasts coming through. So thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Look forward to seeing you on next week's episode.